What happened? A spate of hostile briefings and cabinet leaks this week prompted Theresa May to demand that ministers show more strength and unity. The Prime Minister had earlier told backbench Tory MPs that the backbiting and carping by future rivals for the party's leadership risk bringing down the government and handing victory to Labour. Media accounts spoke of deep divisions between Chancellor Philip Hammond, Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson and Brexit Secretary David Davis over Brexit strategy and limits on public sector pay. According to the leaks, Hammond claimed in cabinet that public sector workers were overpaid, and that driving a train was now so easy that even women could do it. One minister also reportedly accused the Chancellor of deliberately trying to fuck up Brexit, while an unnamed Davis ally was said to be spreading lurid stories about Johnson's private life. What the editorials said. Full marks to Theresa May for insisting on cabinet discipline, said The Times. With the Brexit negotiations now underway, Britain's whole future is at stake. This is not time for the kind of vicious squabbles that could scuttle her minority government and plunge the country into political chaos. Rival ministers may be bickering, but the Prime Minister can at least depend on the vast majority of her MPs, said the Sunday. The powerful 1922 committee of Tory backbenchers this week promised its support and urged May to sack ministers who rock the boat. She must act now to take back control of her government. As if she could, said The Guardian. When cabinet ministers take to leaking against each other, it's a sure sign of deep prime ministerial and cabinet weakness. The fact is that May's drubbing at the polls has robbed her of all authority. She lacks the clout to get rid of the Downing Street cat, much less to sack a disloyal minister. The parliamentary recess will cover over but cannot conceal deep divisions that look set to persist. What the commentators said. With the PM's authority in free fall, ministers are busily positioning themselves for a leadership contest, said Tim Shipman in the Sunday Times. Cabinet is now a venting room for those pursuing their own agendas. The sparring is not confined to Downing Street. At the Spectator party last week, David Davis visibly irritated Boris Johnson by flirting with Johnson's sister, Rachel, and suggesting Johnson was too toxic even for her. That's why, before the June election, she'd defected to the Lib Dems. Two of the biggest beasts in government are now set to look horns. The smart money isn't on Johnson, said James Forsyth in The Spectator. Ranged against him are a phalanx of enemies, Cameron Osborne loyalists who can't forgive him for dethroning their king and their dauphin, Europhiles who blame him for Brexit, and fellow ministers, notably Philip Hammond, who resent what they see as his undeserved rise to high office. The Foreign Secretary's friends now gripe that everyone's out for Boris. They're right. The real danger to May, said Stephen Bush in the New Statesman, comes from what one Tory MP calls the safe seat kids, those who can plot away knowing that any voter revolt won't hit them in their constituencies. May's strength, on the other hand, is that most Tory MPs have a fragile hold on their seats, and so are ready to punish anyone who rocks the boat and undermines their leader. Then again, most Tory MPs recognise that May simply isn't strong enough to lead them into the next election, said Paul Goodman on ConservativeHome.com. Yet the alternatives aren't great, either. Davis is probably the man best placed to hold the party together. But does it make sense to opt for a leader who'd be over 70 by the time of the next election? But Hammond is hardly a vote winner either, said Matthew Norman in The Independent. To replace May with her Chancellor would just be to trade one grey middle-aged robot with the charisma of a 1950s BBC continuity announcer for another. What next? Insiders believe Theresa May is unlikely to face a leadership challenge until after the Conservative Party conference in October. To trigger an election, at least 48 Tory MPs, 15% of the total, would have to back a motion of no confidence in the Prime Minister. To fend off his critics, the Chancellor is looking at a compromise on public sector pay, according to The Times. The deal would allow the lowest paid workers a bigger rise than their higher-earning colleagues. The present 1% cap is to be reviewed in this autumn's budget.